Last week, it was announced that there would be a tournament to crown the next NWA United States Heavyweight Champion, with the tournament on October 7th. Tonight, the competitors are revealed. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself. It is September 15th, 1984. Last week, Rowdy Roddy Piper promised both Cyndi Lauper and her loser boyfriend, David Wolf, that she nor him had heard the last of Roddy Piper nor Captain Lou Albano. The Russian Bear, Ivan Koloff, challenged the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, to an arm wrestling competition on behalf of his nephew, Nikita Koloff. And Cowboy Ron Bass became the new NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion when he defeated Angelo Mosca Jr. I didn't get to focus too much on that match or the win itself due to it taking place on the NWA Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling secondary program, Worldwide Wrestling. But fear not, we are going to tune in first to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling this week, where Bob Caudle immediately greets us on commentary. The first match of the week is a singles match between Mark Youngblood and Paul Kelly. And the match gets off to a lightning fast start as Youngblood hits Kelly with several fast tosses and a cross body. A back body drop keeps Marky Mark in control, and then he decides to slow things down with a headlock.
Mark Youngblood has found a good thing in that headlock, and he's going to stay with it.
Asking Mark Youngblood to hit anything more technical than a headlock would cause him to dissolve into a nervous wreck, Caudle. It's his brother, the Renegade, who's more skilled in the ring, don't you remember? Paul Kelly breaks free after smashing Youngblood's head into the corner turnbuckle, but a huge chop returns control of the match to Marky Mark. Youngblood wins shortly thereafter with a second crossbody. Backstage, biased Bob Caudle has the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship in his hand, and he takes this opportunity to remind us all of the completely ridiculous decision that the NWA Board of Directors have taken in their decision to make a tournament to crown the new champion. And trust me, I'm not the only one who feels that this entire tournament is a complete farce. Caudle does inform us of who will be competing on October 7th. 16 of the NWA's top competitors will be vying for an opportunity to become the next NWA United States Heavyweight Champion. And while some of them may be great, and while some of them may have great skill sets, none of them are going to match the athleticism and tenacity of the man that I've decided to place all my bets on, Chief Wahoo McDaniel. Why? Because the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship rightfully belongs to him, and he is a man with nothing to lose. And trust me when I tell you that there is nothing more dangerous in this world than that. We then get to hear from the other man who's been deeply affected by this asinine tournament, Ricky Steamboat, who we learned of this tournament not through face-to-face communications. No one on the NWA Board of Directors had that much of a spine. Instead, he received a letter in the mail.
Tells me through a letter, which I think is a cop-out way of trying to tell me, why don't they come and tell me themselves in person?
14 of the other competitors that are going to be competing in the tournament do not matter to Ricky Steamboat, because all he's going to be looking out for is Chief Wahoo McDaniel, before Steamboat promises that when October 7th hits, he will be in the finest shape of his career and vows to become the next NWA United States Heavyweight Champion. Keep dreaming, bro. The new NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions, the Long Riders, are competing in tag team action next against Denny Brown and Keith Loser Larsen. Not only are James J. Dillon's boys the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions, but Cowboy Ron Bass is wearing that beautiful NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship proudly. The Long Riders are unstoppable. Bart and Brown start things off for their respective teams, and it's not long before Denny is thrown outside of the ring. But thankfully for him, the Cowboy is there to greet him and introduces him shoulder first to the ring post. Back in the ring, the Long Riders viciously maul Denny Brown from pillar to post, all while that loser Larsen stands there looking on helplessly. On multiple occasions, the Long Riders are both capable of putting Denny Brown away for the 1-2-3, but rather than do that, they decided to inflict more punishment and make Brown a warning to any other tag team that decides to step into the ring with the Long Riders. There will be violence and you will get hurt. Denny Brown is beaten within an inch of his life, yet somehow he miraculously gets a tag to Larsen. But when Keith is in the ring, he does the exact same, if not worse than his partner before him. As while Denny Brown hung on for dear life and managed to get a tag to his partner, Larsen only goes on to lose the effort for his team following a running power slam. Yeehaw! At the end of last week's Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, I mentioned that the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff challenged the American Dream Dusty Rhodes to an arm wrestling competition on behalf of his nephew Nikita Koloff. And it's next. Dusty Rhodes has brought Barry Windham to the ring with him for reasons unspecified, whereas Nikita Koloff has brought his uncle Ivan Koloff with him, as well as coach Don Kernodle, and the three of them, as a reminder, comprise the current NWA Six-Man Tag Team Champions. On guest commentary, James J. Dillon channels his inner Tyler Vance and immediately digs into the American Dream.
Because I think for once in his life, the American Dream, he's finally opened his mouth and stuck his foot in it when he accepted the challenge.
Dusty does some weird hand gesture before he and Nikita Koloff lock up, and it's clear once things get underway that the Russian has the advantage. Rhodes hangs on, but to me, it's obvious that he's using the table for leverage. Disqualify him!
He's grabbed the touch, that's illegal! That's illegal! I didn't see it myself.
Bam! Koloff smashes Rhodes' hand down for the victory. I knew it. Suck eggs, Dusty. Biased Bob Caudle is back at it again as he's trying to claim that it was Nikita Koloff who was using the table as leverage, but despite that, both James J. Dillon and myself are informing you and everybody else, Bob Caudle, that that is not true. Try and cheat as he might, Dusty Rhodes lost fair and square to Nikita Koloff. Mike Rotundo then appears for some reason with a rope in his hand and offers it to the American Dream, who musters up the last two remaining brain cells that he has and immediately challenges Nikita Koloff to a rematch, but this time with their dominant right hands tied behind their backs. No. You lost fair and square, Dream. Suck it up and head to the backstage area knowing that you full well could not beat a superior athlete even when you resorted to cheating. Against his uncle's advice, Nikita Koloff accepts, and both competitors have their arms tied behind their backs. At least Dusty won't be able to grab the table to cheat again. On top of this, the referee orders Barry Windham, Mike Rotundo, Coach Don Kernodle, as well as Ivan Koloff all to the backstage area to avoid any potential interference. Round 2 begins, and Nikita Koloff has Dusty Rhodes exerting so much energy that the American Dream looks like he's about to die. What? What is this? The referee clearly has his arm on the table, tilting it in Dusty Rhodes' favor, and Nikita Koloff can't get a grip. His right arm is tied behind his back, and he's competing fairly. What the hell is this? And so now Rhodes is claimed as the winner? This corruption is too much. And Don Kernodle and Ivan Koloff agree with me, so they head to the ring and beat the ever-loving crap out of Dusty Rhodes until those two clowns, Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo, come to the ring. But it's all for naught. The NWA Six-Man Tag Team Champions have already meted out justice, and so they head out to the backstage area calmly. That referee should be fined, suspended, and had his referee license revoked. One of the losers that we just saw, Barry Windham, takes on Jeff Sword next in one-on-one competition. Though you could barely call it a competition because Windham wins in 30 seconds following a flying lariat. Backstage, biased Bob Caudle has Paul Jones and the Zambui Express standing by for an interview. Elijah Akeem claims that due to racism in the NWA, not surprising, neither he nor Kareem Muhammad have been given an opportunity to compete in the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship Tournament.
You done did it for 200 years! We had to sit in the back of the bus!
Akeem then goes on to give everybody in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling a warning.
If you don't don't step aside. That Zamboy Express gon' run over you.
Muhammad then says that he and his partner are to be referred to as
My name is Mr. Kareem Muhammad. Mr. And that's Mr. Elijah Akeem.
And don't you forget it, long live the revolution. Next up, Bob Caudle is speaking to Paul Jones's close friend and associate in James J. Dillon, who has the Long Riders with him. And Dillon is celebrating the fact that last week, not only did the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championships return to the Long Riders, but Cowboy Ron Bass decimated Angelo Mosca Jr. to become the new NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion on Worldwide Wrestling. I did say that this was now the Long Riders' territory, did I not? James J. Dillon then challenges anybody with any gumption to step up to the plate and go after either the Long Riders for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championships or Cowboy Ron Bass for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship. Either way, they're gonna lose. Another one of those losers that was present during the sham of an arm wrestling competition, Mike Rotundo, is taking on Doug Vines in singles competition next. An atomic drop from Rotundo immediately sends Vines over the top rope and down mountain to the floor. And once Vines is back into the ring, Mike Rotundo slows things down with a headlock before he eventually goes on to secure the win with that lame airplane spin finisher. The main event of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling sees our resident heroes of justice, the NWA World Tag Team Champions in the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff and the Pride of the Carolinas, Coach Don Kernodle, taking on Sam Houston and Mr. Personality himself, Brian Adidas. While Ivan Koloff's nephew Nikita Koloff looks on, Adidas is able to outpace Ivan Koloff as Koloff misses an elbow drop. When Kernodle is tagged in, he's clearly not all there either, as Adidas continues to outpace him, body slamming the coach and then latching on that headlock that Mr. Personality loves so much. Clearly, the corruption of that sham arm wrestling competition is still weighing heavily on the NWA World Tag Team Champions' minds. Houston is tagged in, and then Koloff is as well once more. And then the Russian Bear moves on to slam his shoulder into Houston's gut, over and over and over again before he whips Sam into a corner, nearly sending him over the top. Now the World Tag Team Champions' heads are in the game. Sam Houston is taken to town by both Ivan Koloff and Don Kernodle, who secure the win over him with the cannon. Justice is served. To finish off Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Bias Bob Caudle has Chief Wahoo McDaniel standing by for an interview, and for once, the Chief agrees with what Ricky Steamboat had to say. This tournament to crown the next NWA United States Heavyweight Champion is a nonsensical, idiotic crock of crap. Chief McDaniel says that no matter how prepared Ricky Steamboat thinks he'll be come October 7th, the Chief will be ready for him. Before Bob Caudle reminds Chief McDaniel that there will be other competitors as well, but it doesn't matter. Chief Wahoo McDaniel will go through absolutely anybody to reclaim what is rightfully his, including his own partner, Tully Blanchard.
And if he gets to wrestle me, then Tully Blanchard's going to get beat, because I'm going to let nothing stand in my way.
With Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling at an end, it's time to tune into the World Wrestling Federation's flagship show, Championship Wrestling. Tony Garea has been given the boot. Vince McMahon realized just how boring the New Zealander was on color commentary, so he's brought on a replacement with much more personality in King Kong Angelo Mosca Sr. And together the duo call the first match of Championship Wrestling, which is a singles match between Greg the Hammer Valentine, who is accompanied by his manager Captain Lou Albano, taking on Mr. Italy Salvatore Bellomo. What in the world is going on with Bellomo's face? I didn't think he could get any uglier, but here we are. A standing dropkick hits Valentine as the match begins, and not long after, he manages to hit the Hammer with another, before he cartwheels around the ring like a gymnast. You're a loser, Bellomo! Captain Albano calls for a quick timeout to discuss tactics with Greg the Hammer Valentine, and it immediately pays off as Valentine then throws Bellomo neck first onto the ring ropes. Valentine then brutalizes Bellomo outside of the ring, and Mr. Italy's prone body forces Captain Albano to trip over him. Salvatore attempts another standing dropkick once he's back inside the ring, but since he's a one-trick pony, a reverse atomic drop quickly returns control of the match to the Hammer. Seconds later, a figure 4 leglock ends Bellomo's delusions of victory as he is forced to submit to an athlete of superior skill. The WWF Women's Tag Team Champions, Princess Victoria and Velvet McIntyre, take on the team of Despina, Montages, and Leilani Kai in a non-title match next. Montages is super aggressive once the bell rings, and she starts the match off by shoving Princess Victoria. So, the princess responds in kind with a vicious arm drag. McIntyre is tagged in and begins to work over Montages' shoulder, even keeping the lock secure as Despina tries to throw the Women's World Tag Team Champion off. Even when Kai is tagged in, the Women's Tag Team Champions always seem to be one step ahead of their opponents as Velvet McIntyre hits Leilani Kai with a head scissors takedown. McIntyre and the princess only lose steam when McIntyre herself is double-teamed in enemy territory, while the referee seems to be off in the corner flirting with Princess Victoria. Simp? Despite this, Velvet McIntyre is a fighting champion, and she manages to rid her opposition off of her by whipping them into one another, before Princess Victoria is then re-tagged in and slams both Leilani Kai's and Despina Montages' head together. Moments later, shock! Despina Montages grabs Princess Victoria's hair, sending her down to the mat. This opens the way for Leilani Kai to hit a splash and get the 1-2-3 for her team over the WWF Women's Tag Team Champions. That means that they are the new #1 contenders. Next up is more singles action as Gentleman Jerry Valiant takes on the WWF Intercontinental Champion Tito Santana. Valiant begins the match by brutalizing Tito Santana with heavy forearms and fists, but Santana responds with a forearm of his own after surviving the onslaught. An attempted shoulder block from both men sends both of them down, but Santana is the first up and gets a shot in on the gentleman, smashing his head into the corner turnbuckle. Valiant manages to outmaneuver Tito Santana and puts him into a lengthy submission, but the WWF Intercontinental Champion refuses to yield. Frustrated, the gentleman tries for a different strategy and whips Santana into the ropes, but instead is met with a head scissors takedown before Tito Santana secures the victory with his flying forearm. Backstage, Mean Gene Okerlund is interviewing Quick Draw Rick McGraw, who says that the best competition can be found in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. What'd you call it?
Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
You're a few years behind. It's just the World Wrestling Federation. Aren't you supposed to be quick on the draw? While usually even-tempered, Rick says that when he's in the ring, he develops a fiery temperament and cannot wait to show it to us.
I'm known for my fire, you know?
The fiery Rick McGraw.
The fire comes out. When Rick McGraw hits the ring, the smell of the popcorn, the roar of the crowd, the action's gonna be there.
Don't worry, we'll see what he's all about in just a few minutes. First, Vince McMahon brings us this week's WWF update, which focuses on the WWF Tag Team Champions, Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch. But all Vince is able to tell us is that there are plenty of tag teams in the World Wrestling Federation that can't wait to get their hands on the tag team champions. Piper's Pit is next, and this week Rowdy Roddy Piper's guest is a man by the name of Jack Tunney, who by his own admission is the WWF Vice President.
Are you sure you're the vice president of the WWF?
I am the vice president of WWF and proud of it.
That's interesting because up until recently, Tunney was a major player on the NWA Board of Directors. Piper starts the interview off by asking Jack Tunney what he thinks about the overwhelming love and support Hot Rod receives via fan mail that's sent to WWF headquarters. Jacko immediately shoots down Piper's claim, saying that the fan mail isn't exactly what Piper thinks it is.
I get a lot of letters on you. They're not exactly what you say.
What do you mean they're not exactly what I say?
Well, you're the most controversial. I think Hulk Hogan's the most popular.
Wait.
What are you talking about? You've been drinking that Vince McMahon Kool-Aid, haven't you? Of Of course you have, because you jumped ship from the NWA to be the WWF Vice President, and now here you are claiming that Hulk Hogan is the most popular wrestler in the WWF, while Roddy Piper is the most controversial one? Get the hell out of here! The main event of WWF Championship Wrestling is a tag team match between the man we heard from earlier in Quick Draw, Rick McGraw, and his partner, Nikita Koloff, taking on the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, who are accompanied to the ring by Freddie Blassie. Iran sucks chants begin to drown out the arena.
What's he asking for now?
So Nikolai Volkov then gets on the microphone to sing the Soviet-Russian national anthem. McGraw gets a quick crossbody on the Iron Sheik as the match begins, but he can't even get a 1 count. He might be quick draw, but clearly Rick is firing blanks. The Iron Sheik then introduces McGraw to Volkov's boot and then tags the Russian in. Volkov then dominates both Nick and Rick before getting a quick win with a huge backbreaker on Koloff. Quick draw is right. This match barely lasted 5 minutes. Thus, another week comes to an end. In the WWF, we were introduced to the new Vice President of the World Wrestling Federation in Jack Tunney, who immediately made a fool of himself as a guest on Piper's Pit. Quick Draw Rick McGraw outlined his ambitions to compete with the absolute best in the World Wrestling Federation before he was put out to pasture by 2 of the best in the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. And Despina Montages and Leilani won a shock victory over the WWF Women's Tag Team Champions Princess Victoria and Velvet McIntyre. In the NWA, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes lost fair and square in an arm wrestling competition before he challenged the Russian to a rematch and had the corrupt official interfere and cheat on his behalf so that Dusty Rhodes could walk away with a sham victory. But the biggest news was that the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship Tournament's 16 competitors were revealed, and both Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Ricky Steamboat, 2 of those 16 competitors, traded threats and insults and both vowed to reclaim what they had lost. 16 of the NWA's top competitors will be vying for one of the NWA's top championships, if not one of the top championships in the world, for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship on October 7th. And the competition is bound to be fierce. Who will win it? My money is on Chief Wahoo McDaniel, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, so let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget to like the video, hit the bell, and subscribe so you're always notified of when a new episode is released. You can also follow me on social media where there's plenty of fun wrestling stuff for you to check out there. That's it for now, so I'll see you next week. So long. James J. Dillon, that there will be 14 other people besides Ricky. And together, the duo call the first match of the evening, which is a complete restart of this because that was weird. Backstage, Mean Gene Okerlund is interviewing Quick Draw.